Have you ever wanted to get a high placement in fractured planes, but GSO Dev said, this is Hailstorm, a Season 4 modifier for fractured planes. It causes an icy airstrike on you, capable of killing you in seconds. It's periodic, so it is a constant threat. And comparing it to the RNG hell from the last 2 seasons, this is absolutely overhyped and completely risk-free modifier if you learn how it works. And today I would like to present to you all 4 ways to diminish, play around, or outright negate the effect of the Hailstorm. First, we need to learn how Hailstorm actually works. Every so often, your location will be struck by ice missiles. They will do damage every 1 second for 4 seconds, and usually this will result in a lot of damage. This will gradually hurt and apply frost onto you and your summons, so you want to get out of its range immediately while not having any summons nearby. At any point in time there can be only one Hailstorm, so unlike some cases where having allies is bad, you can afford to summon anything you need at a distance and jump towards it if necessary. If you escape the Hailstorm reactively, you're guaranteed to take at least 1 hit of damage, since the first damage tick happens before the missiles even hit the ground. However, if you take a closer look at the timer when a Hailstorm is happening, you can notice that the Hailstorm spawn time isn't entirely random. Since the description reads that the effect is periodic, it is safe to assume that we're looking for an exact interval between Hailstorms. While an exact list of times doesn't exist, the Hailstorms are mostly consistent. At worst, they will be summoned onto you every 14 to 15 seconds, where the first Hailstorm will be delayed. However, Hailstorms are not guaranteed to spawn on their timers. In this footage you can see that a Hailstorm will successfully land at 6:52, 6:37, 6:23, 6:08, and 5:53 for 5 successful summons in a row, but then proceed to fail at 5:38 and later 5:23, only succeeding again at 5:09. Remember, the times are not consistent, since a Hailstorm can occur within 14 or 15 seconds from the previous chance to appear. From my experience, the Hailstorm chance can range between 75 and 80%, or there can be an additional factor making it fail to spawn. The way you can use this information to your advantage is by noticing when a Hailstorm appears and knowing it will not appear again for the next 13 seconds. After that, you can anticipate a new one by moving away or preparing to react. If a Hailstorm comes, good. You can safely continue for 13 seconds before reacting again. If one doesn't, you are still safe for the next 13 seconds, but you can no longer accurately predict when a Hailstorm can appear after that due to the time range. If a Hailstorm hasn't passed in the past 40 seconds, you should be aware one can surprise you anytime soon, so hopefully this doesn't happen in a critical moment. Knowing how to minimize Hailstorm hits is only helpful if you can survive one to begin with. And there are 2 factors to help you survive a Hailstorm. One is your defensive attributes, particularly health, final damage reduction, and ice resistance. If you're not struggling with enemies, but rather dying too fast to Hailstorm, you should consider increasing your defenses. General builds have lower ice resistances, and those can easily be increased with buffs, a dedicated ice resistance item, or by using 10 out of 10 Ice Mastery, since it provides 45% increased ice resistance. However, and probably more importantly, there is another attribute that determines how well you can survive a Hailstorm, and it's not one you would expect. It's your damage and critical values. Since the Hailstorm hits everything in your range, including enemies, its damage scales with yours rather than on a floor by floor basis. This means that whether you're on floor 31 or 100, you should be taking the same damage from Hailstorm. However, that damage will scale with yours meaning that if you're using higher essences, you will be ending yourself with those and probably not realize you did. At lower floors where the damage is not that necessary, using blue essences, or even better, elemental essences, will keep your base damage low. Similarly, activating the winter set will spike your damage and thus shorten Hailstorm's kill timer, so don't activate winter set when not necessary. Also, Hailstorm has that weird scaling with the escalating fury effect, which increases both your damage and the Hailstorm's, making it effectively slightly more dangerous as time goes on. Knowing what essences you use affects the damage of Hailstorm. If you find yourself in a position where you don't need the strongest essences, or cannot heal, such as when moving around, you can switch to a lower essence type to keep yourself from losing the run. Also, Jewel of the Frozen Heart is a thing. At max rarity, you can recover half of your max health when taking damage while chilled, and Hailstorm, conveniently, chills you. So, you can take advantage of its chilling effect by taking damage from other sources to keep you alive. Do note it has to be another source and not just the Hailstorm. It could be a weak enemy or a damage overtime effect. This is mostly noticeable during the Nefertari and Arachna boss fights, where the arena will usually apply a weak burn, which, while normally annoying, can absolutely counter the damage of Hailstorm, provided it doesn't deal more than half of your health as damage every hit. With all that said, sometimes, even with all of that knowledge, Hailstorm can just be a miserable experience. Specifically, if you're forced in a small corner with no room to maneuver, like the bosses on floors ending in 3, 4, and 6, escaping the Hailstorm can cost you damage, and choosing to greet damage can cost you the run. If you're at a point in time where you've exhausted everything else there is to do, there's still one last method that can completely deny the effect of Hailstorm. Essences of Vitality Abduction. While it provides less damage than purple essences and is given in limited amounts during events, the lifesteal effect can usually bring you from dead to full health in one hit. If you can switch to use it during Hailstorms and switch out of it while they're inactive, you can completely disable any dangers the Hailstorm would cause to your runs. These make the hardest of boss fights become a piece of cake that only requires the press of a button to switch essences on 14-second intervals instead of having to use dodging skills. You aren't even at risk of getting fully frozen, since a Hailstorm can only reach up to 15 out of the 50 necessary frost stacks before it vanishes and lets the 5 seconds of debuff time go away. As of making this video, it is the second day of the season, and surprisingly, Hailstorm has already been nerfed. On the first day, its spawn interval was every 7 to 8 seconds, with double the hit rate and 6-second duration, making it a very stressful threat compared to now. Anyway, I still hope this video helps you play around Hailstorm better than, say, if you went in blindly trusting your next run would be the one. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.